This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kestrel Country Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Church, joined here as always by my lovely wife and co-host, Catherine.
Hello, hello.
We are coming to you still from stay-home orders here in North Idaho from our dining room, and excited to bring another episode, another interview of a local person, local place, and even some local events, all one. In this episode.
It was a little rough, I'm not going to lie. I had to pop up and run out a few times to help kids and deal with kids.
That's the behind the scenes.
The behind the scenes on this one.
If you notice some
door closings,
some absence of Catherine in question asking and things, we're dealing with homeschooling just like many of you are during this time. So yeah, there's some interruptions and fun as we go through it. So, but really grateful for Joel Cohen coming on. Joel is a local businessman, entrepreneur, and owner of Tapped downtown Moscow.
Yeah. So this was a really fun one. Actually, I need to go back and listen to the whole interview because I did miss parts. But for what's coming up, their new things that they're doing, how they've innovated during this time, and their delicious food.
Yeah, we've been friends with Joel and Christine Cohen for many years.
Back to college.
Back to college, and both got married the same year. And really fun to have him on and talk about Tapped. And it's really become a central gathering place in downtown Moscow. So we talked about that, what they're dealing with going through this shutdown period, pivoting to take out and continuing to serve people. And so, let's get into our call with Joel Cohen. Joel Cohen, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time this morning. And I've been saying it every time, but it's weird to be doing a local podcast via the phone, but that's what we're doing right now. So we'll have to have you on again once all this craziness is over and we can actually sit around the table together.
All right, sounds good.
But to get started, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you came to Moscow and kind of where your story has gotten you to this point.
All right. I'll pick up, I guess, after high school. So I was living in the Seattle area, and after high school, didn't want to go to college, and so I just worked small jobs, part-time jobs. I said part-time, but just minimum wage, entry-level jobs. Did that for about a year before I realized that wasn't all that exciting, and tried going to college, but didn't really want to do it at the time, so I didn't do particularly well. I mean, I got a C in volleyball. So
I didn't know you got graded in volleyball.
And I've played volleyball with you, and you're actually pretty good, so that's somewhat surprising.
Yeah, and so anyway, ended up joining the Marine Corps, as you guys know. Did 4 years, and then when I got out, I moved to Phoenix, where I was actually born, and lived my first 11 years. It's where most of my family was. Actually, pretty much all my family was at that time. So I started going to college and doing community colleges, and became a Christian during this time, and was looking for a way out of Phoenix because I didn't like it there. Lots of things I didn't like: the weather, the size of the city. I was looking for a good church community, and I wanted to live in a small town that had seasons. And so my aunt threw out Moscow as a possible destination. So I came up here and visited once over a weekend, and then I just moved up a couple weeks later. That was January of 2005 when I moved here. So I moved here then, and except for a short stint in Eugene, about 3 years, from 2011 to 2013, I've been here since then.
So yeah, how did and what do you do now? So you started Tapped. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
stumbling over my words here. Yeah. So how did that come about? What did you do since from when you moved to Moscow, and then how did Tapped come about?
So when I moved to Moscow, I actually intended to go to New St. Andrews College, and I applied and was accepted, but didn't have the money, and so I was going to work for a bit and save up money and then go to New St. Andrews College. In the process, while I was working and not going to New St. Andrews, I figured I might as well finish my Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration degree, which I was doing through the mail correspondence at the time, a little bit online, but a lot of it was literally through mailing in paperwork and stuff. So I actually finished that up and never went to New St. Andrews College, and got married right around the time I graduated in '07. Was trying to figure out what I was going to do for a career. I ended up going and getting a master's degree in accounting and getting my CPA license. But to go back to when I moved here and how I got it Tapped, it all started when I first moved here and noticing that there wasn't a location I thought was good for non-college students but was still fairly casual and inexpensive. So you had some nice restaurants, which were great, and you had college kind of hangouts, but there wasn't a place for your own folk outside of college to go that was kind of nice but not expensive, still casual.
Yeah.
So at the time, actually, I was thinking, like an Irish pub or something would do really well here, because I went to a lot of Irish pubs back in the day, and I thought they were pretty fun. So that was when I first noticed there was something that I thought was missing in the marketplace here in Moscow. But
so so it's a long time. It's been brewing, forgive the bad pun, for quite a long time then.
Right. Not that I had planned to do necessarily about it. It was just something I noticed and thought it'd be kind of fun to do it, but we never will do something like that. Because I've never worked in a restaurant. I didn't know anything about the business at all. So after going back to when I got my master's degree in accounting, I was looking for a job where I could work as a certified public accountant. And this was in the middle of the recession, so it took me about a year and a half to get a job offer. And the job offer was with Moss Adams in Eugene, Oregon. And so I accepted that job offer and moved there in January of 2011. And while I was there, met a guy at church whose name was Steven, and he and his brother Dan were wanting to start a brewery. And as we became friends with Steven, he asked me if I would partner with them to help them open the brewery and be sort of the accounting and financial part of the team. So I did that, and we got the brewery open. But in fact, it took us a long time. We didn't actually open it until after Tapped was open, which was kind of funny. It took us about 4 years to get it going. So just being out there, working in a very beer-centric part of the world. So I went up to Portland a lot for work. But even Eugene has quite a few breweries, and then there's Bend not far away. I saw a lot of the craft beer world, and saw a lot of tap houses that were really, really popular and really fun. And they were kind of what I was thinking. They were a place that wasn't a college hangout, but it was a place where families and adults, in careers and outside of college would go to, but they're still very casual and fun and stuff. So that's when sort of the idea in my head about what might do well here would be sort of more of a tap house rather than an Irish pub model. So anyway, I ended up moving back here because I realized I didn't like being a CPA. And while I was at work in Eugene, Christine, my wife, would apply for jobs on my behalf. So one day she told me I had an interview scheduled with a company in Pullman. So interviewed for that and ended up getting that job. And I was like their head accountant or controller person. So when we moved back at the end of 2013, I was doing that. Meanwhile, I had a friend who was encouraging me to open a tap house, which I had told him about this idea. And he really encouraged me just to do it and help me get it started. And just helped me get past the fear of trying it. So we ended up doing that. I think about a year and a half to get going, and we opened in October of 2015.
Wow. So it's coming up on 5 years already.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be a funny, this may be an odd question, but given your background in, in the Marines, the military, and in accounting, obviously it's probably not the most typical path for getting into the restaurant business. What do you think? Do you think that though has positioned you uniquely to succeed in it, or what are some things that have carried over from like a military background and accounting into starting and running, a restaurant and a tap house?
A few things, I guess. In the Marine Corps, you never could accept the fact that something was impossible to do. If it needed to be done, you just had to do it, and you had to figure out how you were going to do it, because not doing it wasn't an option on the table. And that sort of mentality has helped me in lots of ways, not just for the restaurant, but even going back to school and graduating with a degree at age 30, and then starting over as a CPA, much older than most people do. So just I had to do it because I needed a good job, and there weren't a lot of options. So that mentality of just overcoming any challenges that come along, and some of the stuff from accounting is realizing that yes, I don't have restaurant experience, but restaurants, they're not some kind of uniquely. They're not a unique business, and what I mean by that is you're selling a product and an experience, which is common to lots of businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, how you go about producing the product and all that is different, but there are people that know how to do that. That's again, it's not rocket science, I guess. It's not brain surgery. It's just making food, and it's sort of in an assembly line manner, right? Being able to do it efficiently, quickly, and affordably, right? So, but that's every business. Every business that makes something has to figure out how to do that. So, I mean, I wasn't daunted by the fact that a lot of restaurants fail. I think that they fail for known reasons. I don't think restaurants that fail has the owner wake up one day and say, "Hey, what happened? My restaurant has failed today." I mean, there's obvious things that are there. It is that you can deal with. You can figure out how to handle those challenges. So, a lot of people, cautioned me about it. Opening a restaurant before we were opening, saying, so many restaurants fail. 80% or fail within 2 years or something. And while I accept that is probably a proven, fact, but it's not because they don't know why. You see what I'm saying? Like, well, because the food costs were terrible, because they were in a terrible location, or the product they offered wasn't very good. All these things can be addressed. So that didn't deter me. I just figured we need to figure those things out, and they could be figured out again because it isn't some ethereal or impossible to figure out problem, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just figured I would hire people that knew the specifics of the industry. This is my plan. I don't need to know the specifics if I can hire people that do.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of reasons why restaurants fail. Like you said, that have been documented. But one of them that probably hasn't been documented, at least not in the recent past, is a pandemic,
and a shutdown,
a black swan event like this, or a shutdown. There's a lot of industries that we can see the government intervening with and shutting down, but I don't think any of us foresaw this kind of event. How has that been? And I imagine that same kind of military mindset of just, okay, there's a problem, we overcome it, we address it. But how has that been for you guys, during this and pivoting to more of a carry out and delivery type of service?
Well, we again, just circumstances forced it upon us. So we were forced to get online ordering set up, which is not a bad thing to have anyway. And focus more on takeout. So we just had to shift from being basically a hospitality industry to a logistics company, basically. So now we have to, produce a product and get it into the hands of somebody, who's ordering for a certain time, or you have to literally take it to their house. We're not offering hospitality anymore; just a product at a certain time. So we've had to make some changes in that way, and it's not as efficient. I mean, our business isn't set up to do that. There's not really as much of a market for that. Most people go out because they want to be out, not because not solely because they don't want to make dinner.
Yeah, they want to gather with friends. They want to be in a certain environment. That's I think one of the huge strengths that you guys have there at Tapped is just obviously your space, and that feeling of, hey, we're, even big common tables and stuff, right?
Which trivia night.
Yeah. So there's something that's fun about going out, that goes beyond just the fact that you didn't have to cook, right? So I wouldn't create a restaurant or a food production facility to just do takeout and deliver it. I would never have thought that model would work. But we can get by for a short term. I had money in the bank going into this, so thankfully we'll be able to weather it better. Although losing a bunch of money every month is not how I wanted to spend the money. But it is what it is. It's the thing that God put in front of us, so we just have to live with it and accept it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that Catherine mentioned, trivia night, reminded me, I think that's one of the things that we were, that's really been fun about what you guys have done, is the trivia night, tap takeovers, a lot of the community support things. How did those things come about? Was that kind of some of your vision from the beginning of this, place that people would gather, not necessarily, like you said, a college hangout, or has that kind of evolved and come about over time as you guys got started?
Well, I've seen tap takeovers done in Eugene and Portland, and so that idea isn't like I made that idea up. I've seen it done and thought it was a good idea. And one of the first brewery that we contacted, called McDuff's, I think they're up in Coeur d'Alene or possibly Hayden. Great brewery, but we contacted them and said, look, we just opened one of these tap takeover. You guys be interested? Or maybe they even approached us. I don't remember, but I do remember that they told us that when they do these events, they partner with some kind of nonprofit, and the nonprofit gets some exposure and some money is raised for them. And I thought, hey, that's a really cool idea. So let's do that. And so we've brought in a not-for-profit partner on every single tap takeover, and we give them a certain amount of each beer sold. So we end up giving them usually several $100s. They get to make people aware of their organization and their cause and what they're around for. So it's good marketing for them, and we're happy to do it. And it's usually a very fun time. So the tap takeover is something I had in my mind from the beginning. The trivia night, I guess the same deal. I've obviously been to lots of trivia nights. There's different ways that they're run, and trivia isn't my thing. I don't really enjoy like Trivial Pursuit or something like that. But it can be fun if it's in a group and working together or stuff like that. It's a little more fun for me. But some people obviously love trivia, so I wanted to offer that for that crowd. The idea of offering events in general is something we wanted to do. I'd love to be able to think of another event that we can offer on different nights. I don't want to try to make every night an event night, but if we could offer some other event, like every other Wednesday when we don't have a tap takeover, for example, that would be kind of a fun thing. I just can't think of a good one to do. So if you have any ideas, let me know.
There you go. Well, it is so cool too. I think that one of the amazing things about this community, and we've seen it illustrated actually, in a real way. It's interesting to hear your perspective on it, because from the outside, it really seems like people have rallied around the local restaurants, local businesses, because at least compared to other places I've lived, this seems to be a unique, a place that has such a strong sense of community and of the downtown and of supporting local businesses, that I'm always just amazed and super pleased by the huge turnouts for those tap takeovers. And I'm sure some of it is for the beers, right? Mm-hmm. They're, depending on the brewery, and awesome beers and everything, but so much is just that this community has a ton of support for these local nonprofits and organizations. And it's awesome to be able to see that and just see the place packed out. And It's really become quite a gathering place for our community.
Yeah, it is fun. And you're right about how this community really supports the downtown restaurant scene and stuff like that. I mean, we've seen a lot of support just since the shelter in place orders have come out. I mean, we do a lot less business, but we're doing more than we probably ought to because people are eating out more than they would normally. And I appreciate that. Although I understand that can't go on indefinitely. People can't just start eating out twice a week. You know, they still have their own budgets to keep. So, but it's been a great, I guess, charity effort for all the restaurants downtown that people are doing that for.
I'm kind of curious on the opening back up side of things. What's the strategy, or have you thought about the strategy on how, to get people back into the restaurant?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we need one. Before we were forced to close, but when there's still a social distancing recommendation in place, we were still open to the chagrin of many people. And we've got tons of people. We weren't like empty or anything like that. We were a little slower than we might normally be, I think, primarily because there was no students in town. But we were still quite busy. And so I think that there are a lot of people in Moscow who are ready to go out and were ready to go out even before they were told they had to stay home.
Right.
So, yeah, there's people that maybe aren't comfortable going out. And I think that as time goes by, obviously, depending what happens, but if not a lot happens, as I suspect, I think they'll pretty quickly be ready to leave their home and drop the mask and not be afraid. Yeah.
Other than the online ordering, which that was interesting that, some of the, I think it's interesting to talk about what are the positives, right, that have come out of this. You mentioned online ordering, something you guys, probably should have done or were, wanting to do anyway. Are there any other things that you guys have found in your processes and your marketing or anything else that you think, wow, this is really going to be a benefit to us as we move forward out of this thing?
Well, one thing for sure is I ended up buying a crowler machine. So I can sell crowlers.
What's a crowler for those who might not know?
The crowler is a 32-ounce can of beer that I can fill from the tap, and then put an actual pop-top can lid on, and then have a machine. The crowler machine steams the lid to the can, and so it's there's a cost to the can, and so it can be it's very slightly more expensive than filling a growler. But the beer stays fresh longer. It doesn't go flat. If you have a 64-ounce growler, one of the disadvantages is that once you open it, you've committed to drinking 64 ounces of beer, and otherwise it's just going to go bad. But a crowler being only 32 ounces is more manageable to drink, either by yourself or with somebody. You can each have a pint, or you can have 2 pints over the course of your night or whatever at home. But it can stay fresh in your refrigerator for like a month. As opposed to a growler, which in a couple of days is going to go flat because of the oxygen that is in it. It's really hard to fill a crowler all the way up to the top without wasting a ton of beer in the process. So, and then you don't have to buy a growler. You can come in and get one if you forgot your growler at home. So it's something I've been wanting to buy for a while, but it's quite expensive. So I had just been dragging my feet on it. But doing delivery and takeout, having that product available became more valuable to me. So I went ahead and forced my hand and I bought it. And it was exciting. And I like the crowler. Something we have had in our brewery in Eugene, my brewery in Eugene for like 3 years now. And we sell a ton of crowlers out of the brewery. And so I knew people would like it.
Yeah. And so they can get any of the beers you guys have on tap in the crowler.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff that, it's like, well, you can't find anywhere else, except for at Tapped when you guys have it on, and that's pretty neat. What are some of your favorite local beers, or, at least somewhat local breweries or beers that you've discovered through this process?
Well, I really like No Lie out of Spokane. I think they're a great brewery and they make good beers. Boise Brewing down in Boise is good. and Daft Badger up in Coeur d'Alene is a good local brewery too. In fact, they were one of the first breweries I contacted when I was in the process of opening up, and they've stayed very small. They're just a very small local brewery. They don't try and distribute very broadly. So if I actually want a keg of theirs, I have to go up and pick it up. They don't work with a distributor, but they make good beer. There's Shelford Abbey. If you're really into farmhouse style beers, they're very good. They do a lot of that kind of stuff, and they're up in I think they're in Post Falls. So now I'm blanking on where they're actually located, but yeah, they're very good too if you're into that style of beer, like Belgians and saisons and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. So coming out of this, are you going to still have the delivery or takeout option with the ordering online already set to go so people could still do that even after the restaurant's back open for business?
I'm not sure. I've been thinking about that. We use a ton of space to make this happen. Like, we have to lay out all of our orders that are picked up on the big table, be ready to go. And it's actually quite a production. I don't know that we can actually do it if the restaurant's full.
Gotcha.
Well, I don't know if we'd have the space, and I don't know if our kitchen could handle that volume. If you've been there on a busy night, our kitchen actually isn't really big enough as it should be. And so we can, on busy night, we start to slowly fall behind because we just don't have enough kitchen space to keep up with all the orders. If I had just throw in online ordering on top of that, I think it'd be disservice to our guests, who would, their wait time for food would just become, unacceptable.
Okay, yeah.
What's
So
next? Do you have? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I'm not sure. We'll have to see if there's a way we can do it without compromising the guest experience inside the restaurant, then I think we would. But right now I can't. I haven't thought of a way. I'll have to check with Tyler because he's pretty good at thinking of these things. If he's thought of a way of making it happen.
Right.
Well, other than the kind of delivered carryout stuff, what's next for Tapped as you guys are continuing to move forward?
Well, a couple of things. First, we're opening in the process of trying to open a second restaurant down in Lewiston. And now we're in the process of working with banks to get a loan for the project. And it's a pretty big project because we bought a building, so we have to actually renovate the whole building. And then we can renovate one of the spaces, one of the commercial spaces to be the restaurant. So that's coming up, and hopefully that it gets done here in the next 12 months.
And that's right downtown?
It is. It's on Main Street. In that building where Colucci's formal wear is, where probably a lot of people in this town have gotten a tuxedo from for a wedding or something.
Yeah.
Yep. So that, it's right on Main Street across from the park. I think it's a pretty good location. And locally here in Moscow, I'd love to be able to get a liquor license. I'm not quite ready to do it because I think we'll need to build a second bar. And so I need to have in a position to afford that. The liquor license itself is expensive, and then the cost of expansion is obviously expensive. So, in 2 or 3 years, I'd love to be able to do that and be able to serve some cocktails and have a good complement of hard alcohol for the beer that we have on tap.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's awesome. Well, do you have a timeline? I mean, I know everything's kind of been paused and stretched out with this, but do you have a projected timeline on the Lewiston Open?
I don't. The one holdup is getting the loan through. So once we have our money in place, I think it'll just be 9 or so months, maybe 10 months, and once we have the loan. So it's sort of a 9 months after whenever that happens, and I don't know when that will happen. So, but I think, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to secure the funding within the next 3 months. So that's why I said hopefully in a year Lewiston will be open.
Awesome. Well, Joel, thank you so much for taking the time. It's fun to hear about what Tap's up to, and I'm glad you guys are weathering this stay-home order and everything else. And everybody should do some delivery and carry out and get some crowlers while they still can. We'll point people to your Instagram. I will say that I have often come on over to your restaurant because of seeing a picture, and now we get awesome videos of like the special burger and all that. So you guys are doing a good job on that.
Yeah. Well, those videos and all that. So that's another thing that's come out of this. Is Tyler's had been brainstorming for marketing, and so these are some of the things he's come up with, which are pretty cool. So that's another thing that's come out of it.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Joel, and we'll let you get back to it, and enjoy this beautiful day, and hopefully soon everybody will be able to gather back at Tapped and celebrate coming out of this thing.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.